Really, it's great to stand up here and see everybody having a great time. I know you'd rather be up here, right, addressing the crowd. But really, it's a great sight to see a sold-out crowd for our annual meeting, which is typical for the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. But I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. Welcome to the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce annual meeting and dinner. And before we start the formal part of the program tonight, I want to do a few other things. My name is Kenny Craig, and I'm the president and CEO of the Chamber. I want to first recognize some special members of the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. We call them our sustaining sponsors. So what is that? Well, our sustaining sponsor program is designed to provide Chamber members tremendous visibility and name recognition through a variety of Chamber publications, which amounts to almost 750,000 exposures throughout the year. By contributing financial support above and beyond their annual membership investment, sustaining sponsors allow the Chamber to improve, enhance, and increase Chamber programs and events. So our 2012 sustaining sponsors are as follows. Our centennial sustaining sponsors are Fort Hamilton Hospital and Mercy Health Fairfield Hospital. Let's give them a hand. Our platinum sustaining sponsors for 2012 are Butler Tech and Miller Coors. Let's give them a hand. And our gold sustaining sponsors are, and it's a long list, so please listen. They're all very important. Butler County Medical Campus, Courtyard by Marriott Hamilton, Cox Media Group Ohio, Excel Corporate Care, Fifth Third Bank, First Financial Bank, Haran Associates, LCNB National Bank, Meyer, Miami University Hamilton, PNC Bank, Porter Advertising, ThyssenKrupp Bilstein of America, TV Hamilton, U.S. Bank, and Walmart. Let's give them a hand. And finally, our silver sustaining sponsors are All Wealth Federal Credit Union, Chaco Credit Union, Connector Manufacturing Company, Hamilton Castor and Manufacturing Company, Integrated Network Systems, Knight Willis Murphy Insurance Services, LWC Incorporated, Parkside Nursing and Rehab, Pepsi-Cola Bottling Company, SHP Leading Design, and Wilkes Insurance Agency. Let's give them a hand. Thank you to all our sustaining sponsors for 2012. We could not put on the programs we put on without you.
Would you please rise for the invocation? Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pray. Almighty and everlasting God, we give you thanks for this wonderful meal that has been set before us. We thank you for the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, for all the hard work they do. We thank you for the leadership of Kenny Craig, the dedication of all the staff. We thank you for everyone gathered here tonight who love and believe in our community. And we thank you especially for our good friend and Citizen of the Year, Don Ryan, for his devotion and love for Hamilton. We thank you that Ed Naira could be with us tonight. We ask that you bless his words. We lift before you in prayer this evening all the businesses in the greater Hamilton area. May you bless each of them with prosperity in the coming year. May they find new opportunities for growth. And may each of us be filled with pride for our community where people want to live, raise their families, and do business in the great state of Ohio. For we pray in your holy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My name's Rick Demmel, and I'm soon to be your outgoing board chair for the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce this year, and I have the distinct pleasure of thanking our event sponsor and presenting sponsors for this evening. First, I'd like to thank our event sponsor, which is Community First Solutions. I have to get through my commercial for them first. So, we are pleased to have Community First Solutions as this evening's event sponsor. The Fort Hamilton Healthcare Corporation was reintroduced to the greater Hamilton community as Community First Solutions, announcing its name change as the presenting sponsor at this event last year. And launching Community First Solutions, the nonprofit parent company of Colonial, Community Behavioral Health, and Community First Pharmacy, the organization with nearly 100 years of meeting nonprofit need throughout Hamilton strengthened the connectivity of these entities and their goal of being the nonprofit resource for meeting a diverse array of community needs. Community First Solutions currently employs 600 individuals, and in its first full year has provided nonprofit services that directly impact the lives of more than 38,000 individuals in the greater Hamilton community. Again, please join me in thanking Community First Solutions. Our presenting sponsor this evening is Miller Coors. The Miller Coors Trenton Brewery, having just celebrated their 20-year anniversary in 2011, is looking forward to many more. In 2011, the 500-plus employees of the brewery brewed, packaged, and shipped just shy of 9.5 million barrels of some of America's favorite brands. You know them as Coors Light, Miller Lite, and Miller Genuine Draft, just to name a few. All of the Trenton Brewery employees are extremely proud of their accomplishments, and of course, being a part of the larger brewery, 8-brewery Miller Coors network. Please join me in thanking our presenting sponsor, Miller Coors. Now the fun part of the evening. We have some official business to take care of tonight, and this is whereby we will elect our new slate of officers and trustees, and I will ask those being elected to stand as their name is called, and we'll ask the rest of you to hold applause till the end. Pursuant to the bylaws of the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, the nominating committee has filed its report for the trustees and officers, which is in your program as follows. The officers: John Gaduli, Chair; Heather Lewis, First Vice Chair. John, stand as your name is called. Oh, okay. Denise Quinn, Second Vice Chair. Don Baker, Treasurer. And yours truly, Past Chair. Being elected for a 3-year term, again, Don Baker of Baker & Associates CPAs, Woody Fitton, Greater Miami Valley YMCA. Hold applause till the end, please. Follow the rules. John Gaduli, Hamilton Community Foundation. Wow, John. Carmen Johnson, Courtyard by Marriott Hamilton. Greg Osmond, Mercy Health Fairfield Hospital. and Jennifer Swenson, Fort Hamilton Hospital. At this time, I need to ask for a motion to elect this slate of officers and trustees, and we'll ask for a second. Do I? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. I'd also ask that you join me in welcoming the following newly appointed members of the Board of Trustees. That would be Kelly Williams from Fifth Third Bank and Mark Zellner from Community First Solutions. Thinking back on this past year, I can best describe it as one of continued challenges stemming from the stresses of our economic climate. I'm certain that you have all felt this in one way or another. And through it all, our chamber has continued to be an integral part of our business community, thanks to the support of our members and under the leadership of Kenny Craig and his staff. While we saw a slight reduction in membership in 2011, we were able to more than offset this thanks to increased participation and support from the rest of the membership base. And in my mind, this is really the sign of a stable Chamber of Commerce and one with a loyal, engaged business community. I'm speaking really of all of you in this room, and for that I thank you. I'm really honored and grateful to have had the opportunity to chair such a distinguished board and know that I'm leaving it in extremely capable hands with John. With that, I'd like to introduce to you John Goodulli, President and CEO of the Hamilton Community Foundation and 2012 Chamber Chairman. John?
Thank you. First thing I want to do is take just a moment to thank Rick for his leadership, dedication, and hard work over the past year and before that as well. On behalf of the Chamber, we certainly appreciate all of your efforts, and I want to personally thank you for the information and for the assistance that you've provided me as I move into this role. So I want to thank you for your service, and we have a little token of our appreciation. Thanks, Rick. At this time, I'd like to thank the outgoing board members from the Chamber Board. There are several who are not in attendance. I'll read their names first and then those who are in attendance. So those not in attendance are Edwina Blackwell Clark, Amanda Davenport, Ryan Kidd, Marcia Koenig, Mike Schroeder, and Jim Vogel. And then I would like to recognize those who are in attendance. I'll ask them to stand and hold your applause to the end, please. Mary Pat Essman, Mike Flaherty with PNC Bank, and Scott Hartford with Matandy Steel and Metal Products. Please join me in thanking them for their service. Now, according to my agenda, this is where I get to make my comments and share with you all of my visions for the Chamber, my thoughts about where we are as a Chamber, where we're going, how we're going to get there, and how you can be part of that. And I get 3 minutes to do all of that, and I think I've already used about a minute of that. Then I was sitting at the table with Mayor Moeller, and he's got his new 5-minute rule, so if I go over 5 minutes, I'm told the police will cart me out. So I'll try to move through this as quickly as I can. But what I do want to say is that I'm honored and excited to assume this role at this time. We all know the economic challenges and conditions facing our country, our state, and our community. Despite the challenges we face, I can assure you that the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce is poised to work with you, our members and supporters, to improve and enhance the economic vitality of our community. As many of you know, the City of Hamilton recently implemented a new strategic plan, much of which has an economic development focus. A great deal of thought and effort went into this plan, and the city's worked very hard to reach out to involve citizens, businesses, and organizations throughout the community as they develop the plan and now as they work to implement it. Many individuals and groups in the community have to work together to make this plan a reality. I'm proud to say this evening that the Chamber has had a major role in assuring the success of this plan and will as it moves forward. I believe that through the collaborative efforts of the city and many other groups and individuals, this plan will create significant positive changes for the community. As your Chamber Board Chair, I invite you to join us in this important work, and I look forward to working with you. And I look forward to a successful year for the Chamber and its members. And it's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Ed Nira. Ed is the CEO of Nira Industries and the author of the book, Cuba, Lost and Found. He is a Cuban immigrant who fled Cuba alone as a boy and moved to Cincinnati in January of 1962. He attended the University of Cincinnati and studied business administration. While still in college, he bought his first company and soon after founded Nira Industries, a manufacturing operation with regional plants throughout the United States. A successful entrepreneur, Ed has started, bought, and sold over a dozen companies and is currently CEO of an assortment of small and mid-sized businesses with combined annual sales approaching $100 million. Ed is very civic-minded and has served on many boards over the course of his time in Cincinnati. He is also an active fundraiser for charities that provide services for children, such as the Ronald McDonald House and Children's Hospital. Ed and his wife, Lynn, have been married since 1972, and they have two sons who are also very active in the family business. I'd like you to join me now in welcoming Ed Nira, our speaker.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for allowing me to share with you my story tonight. And thank you for saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I have to tell you, coming from where I came from, when I hear and say the Pledge of Allegiance, hear the national anthem, "O Beautiful America," I feel 10 feet tall and I can hardly contain myself. We are so blessed to live and be in America. Cuba Lost and Found is my journey as a Cuban immigrant. It is a story of where it begins as an 11-year-old boy who had to say goodbye to his mother. I came with my sister. They couldn't get out. I didn't speak English, and I arrived in Cincinnati in January 10th, 1962. Now, prior to that, I had never been exposed to anything below 65 degrees. Now, I can vividly tell you, I arrived in Cincinnati about 5:20. I had no idea it would get dark that early. The I-71-75 bridge was being built, so we had to go around. The traffic was horrendous. You remember that, obviously. You don't look old enough to remember that. You're welcome. And it was about 8 inches of snow on the ground, and it was around 0. I have never seen anything so ugly in my life. To this day, when I hear about a beautiful snowfall, I have never seen a beautiful snowflake. And when my wife talks about a beautiful white Christmas, I say, get a postcard. I hate it, and I still hate it. But I love Cincinnati. I think it would be safe to say that most in this room are parents. I would say that's probably a pretty safe bet that most of us are either parents, grandparents, have children. And I think you have to think about, how does a parent decide to send their 11-year-old son, their 15-year-old daughter abroad to an unknown world after you have lost your third child and after your husband, my father, was very, very opposed to us leaving the country. And to me, that pretty much defines my mother, who I dearly loved. She, and the book is dedicated to her for her unconditional love and for her tremendous courage to, against all odds, make that decision, make the sacrifice to let your children go away. And if you knew my mother, the loving person that she was, you would think, how in the world did she do that? But that's the way she was. She never complained. I never saw my mother say a bad word. I never saw her smoke a cigarette. I never saw her take a drink. She was just the epitome of what I consider a great individual. So I think to understand how someone could make that decision, I think I'd like to share with you how that came about, because I think it makes you understand it a lot better. Cuba was in complete chaos. First of all, Batista, the prior president, was really coming down on social unrest. And the more difficult things got, the tougher he made it. So there comes this revolutionary, well-spoken lawyer who was young and promised change. And change always sounds good when things aren't going well. Of course, you don't know what change becomes. And he promised elections. 53 years later, they have never happened. And the conditions in Cuba became worse and worse. First thing, Castro confiscated the businesses. And they started with the oil companies because they say that America wouldn't refine his crude and that they were trying to really put pressure on him by doing so. Then he confiscated the banks. And you have to understand that at that time, 80% of the Cuban economy was owned by the United States. The Cuban peso was equivalent to a Cuban dollar, and it was printed at the Denver Mint. So in today's world, we think that there are these two very separate countries. Nothing can be farther from the truth. These two countries were very, very integrated in every aspect, socially, financially, and culturally. So the next thing Castro did, he went down the ladder and started confiscating businesses. The next thing he did was he abolished all professional organizations, all. What is going on here tonight would never, ever be permissible in Cuba. The vote that you just took here for your elected board members and individuals would never be. You could never meet in any place in this kind of environment unless it was government sanctioned, government related, and government controlled. He then closed the private schools, all the churches, and kicked the clergy out. The next thing is a rumor going across the island that he was going to start something called Patria Potestad, which meant he was going to take away the children from the parents and educate them from 3 years old on up. He was going to set up these state camps for the children, and depending on your age, you could go visit your parents on the weekends. Now you can imagine being a parent and thinking, oh my God, it's incredible. It's incredible how one man can change a country. So what happened was, there was a private school in Havana, which is the Ralston Academy, which was ran by an American from Kentucky by the name of James Baker. He contacted the embassy. He then contacted the Eisenhower administration, and they sent a man by the name of Voorhees to Miami to meet with Baker to see what can be done. And in that, they meet with a priest in Miami, Walsh. They make a pact, and they said, if you could get children here, we will take care of them. That program began because they had learned in Spain that kids were being kidnapped in order to get the parents to flush out during the Nationals and the Revolution for the counter-revolution against Fidel Castro. That became known as Operation Pedro Pan. In fact, there's a couple of movies about it, The Lost Apple and Operation Pedro Pan, The Untold American Story. And just this past October was its 50th anniversary. In this process, 14,048 of us were taken out of the country with a visa that was student. Unfortunately, when the missile crisis took place, the program was halted. Cuba was on lockdown, and over 50,000 kids were left behind with visa in hand. I would like to share with you a passage which will take me back to the moment that I left my home and my family. It's from the chapter, Los Nairas no lloran, which means Nairas don't cry. I was one of the very last to board the plane. There were children of all ages in the flight, some so young they needed to be carried up the steps. Many, just like me, believing they were just leaving Cuba temporarily to go to school in the United States. Families had endured cycles like this throughout Cuba's turbulent history, sending their children abroad to be educated and then bringing them back once the political climate had cooled. Once on board, I sensed a transformation taking place, a feeling of responsibility that I had never, ever felt an hour earlier, awash in the realization that I needed to grow up fast and take care of myself without my parents' guidance. I wonder who would protect me. It was my very first airplane flight, but I wasn't excited. The mechanical marvel of this massive machine going airborne would have ordinarily enthralled me, but it was by far secondary to my other concerns. I was too overwhelmed by having just left my parents, my friends, and the life I knew behind. As I struggled with my emotions, I felt a great sense of obligation to keep them in check. After all, this departure had been planned for many months. I had promised my father that I would never cry, and I had no intention of violating that vow. My last tear had been wiped away at La Pecera, the holding pen at the airport gate, when I had said goodbye to my mother. I was inordinately proud of the self-control I displayed in withholding my own feelings. Instinctively, I discovered the perfect defense mechanism during the hour-long flight. I compulsively talked to anyone who would engage in conversation to distract them from their tears. It was an intoxicating sense of empowerment. Many of the adults were also trying to console the children, but they themselves were breaking down. The fuselage became more like a funeral in flight, with so many refugees of all ages sobbing. The cabin crew kept offering candy, chiclets, and soft drinks in the attempt to calm the hysterical children. but few were willing to eat or drink anything. They just continued to wail. As the plane approached Miami, the desolate passengers finally settled into somber silence. I flashed back to the departure and the events of the day and of so many conflicting feelings. I tried to resurrect the images of the beach I had just left behind and retrieve the emotional souvenirs I thought I had successfully stored. But I was just too tired. Sinking back into my seat, exhausted and depleted of adrenaline, a wave of sadness washed over me. The abrupt bump of the landing gear jerked me out of my trance. As we taxied from the runway, I turned to stare out the window. Only one thing was certain now. I would never allow myself to feel this vulnerable again. Not ever. And I didn't. I pursued my life in America with zest. I didn't dwell on what was left behind. I focused strictly on the future. It wasn't long that I learned to live with snow and with loneliness, but I was determined to succeed. It was not an option. My parents came 3.5 years later. And you would think, wow, that must have been terrific. And it was, but not necessarily. You got to remember, I left when I was 11. Now I'm almost 16. I had completely engulfed myself in being an American. I wanted to be an American. I wouldn't even admit that I was from Cuba. I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was moving on. My parents show up, and now we have an independent adolescent teenager who's wearing penny loafers, Madras shirts, and he really doesn't want to come home and speak Spanish, and he really doesn't want to eat black beans. So it was really a very trying time. And I think for all of us, they themselves saw the distant adolescent, although they were very loving. They also saw some degree of guilt, maybe, I think. I don't know. We never talked about it. Then all of a sudden, in the process of assimilation, I felt like a foreigner in my own home, being American in the day at school and a Latino at home at night, which I wanted no part of. That was very challenging. I pursued the American dream, and for the next 35 years, once I went to college and left home, I was moving on. And I was driven to achieve. I built businesses. Work was my world. Then I went into what I call the midlife meltdown. And I started developing anxiety and developing a desire to go back to Cuba. Fortunately for me, my wife, Lynn, is absolutely the most supportive, wonderful, understanding, beautiful person I have ever known. And unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight because she's babysitting. And she encouraged me to go, and she went with me. And she pretty much conned me into going by telling me, what are you doing in about 2-3 months? Bring your calendar because a good friend of yours and I are going to Cuba. Do you want to go? Now, my wife is very beautiful and very persuasive, and she does it in such a stealth way that it was disarming. So I'm on my way to Cuba. So allow me to read for you the turmoil about going back. This passage is from the chapter Facing the Fear. For most Cubans living in the United States, the prospect of going back to the island was an issue guaranteed to provoke a heated response. I had promised my parents that I would never return, not even for a visit, as long as the Castro government was still in power. They warned me that it was too dangerous, and I had agreed out of loyalty. So I had to talk to my parents, and soon. If either of them would die before I confronted the issue, I felt like it would be a greater betrayal than if I had just gone without their blessings while they were still alive. I could hardly believe the anxiety building inside me whenever I thought about telling them that I was planning to visit Cuba. I decided to seek their approval on my next visit to their home in Miami. Mammy was in her early stages of Alzheimer's and had difficulty following any lengthy conversation. But Papi's mind was still razor sharp, and so was his resentment of the Castro regime. I finally mustered the courage to tell him that I was thinking about visiting Cuba. I wanted him and Mommy to understand my decision. As a strong supporter of the embargo, he filled me with the usual horror stories about those who went, ran into trouble, and never came back. Stories usually told in the third person without any corroboration. But he finally accepted my pending trip and was happy to know that I was going to financially help our family left there. Once I got home, I told my wife, Lynn, that I felt like a teenager without a driver's license asking his father if he could borrow the car for a cross-country road trip. No longer hiding behind the curtain of misplaced loyalty, I was now dealing directly with my own fears. I would lay awake at night, always ambushed by questions. What would Cuba be like? How would I feel? Did I truly want to resurrect all those buried emotions? My mood seemed to sway back and forth almost daily, from exhausted anticipation to paranoid anxiety. Snapshots of armed guards, military trucks, and tanks flashed in my mind. Being under a totalitarian government where even its citizens had no rights, no protection, no due process, no control, and could be detained or interrogated at will was frightening. My family had made a big sacrifice and taken a great risk to get me out, and I wanted to walk back in. Just thinking about going through immigration triggered panic. I was counting on Lynn as my security blanket, protection against being marooned in my homeland, which was now a foreign country to me. I was overcome with emotions the moment I landed. Memories of guns, guards, and gates. The fear of immigration, communist dictatorship, a cop on every corner, a country in ruins, and a fractured family. Now all the emotions are coming home to roost. Guilt was certainly prevalent. I have lived a very blessed life in the United States, and I see how my family lives, where they get a pound of meat twice a year per person, chicken, meat, red meat, or fish, depending on what's available. I went and took them some toiletries and things. They had given me a picture of my mother's wedding date, which is in my book. Unfortunately, I had left it behind. I had to go back and get it. I wanted it. Secondly, I didn't want them to feel like it had no value to me. When I went back, they were all on the floor separating what I had taken to them. I was trying so hard to control my emotions. I bit my tongue so hard so I wouldn't break down that I started bleeding. My aunt wondered what was wrong. And I said, oh, I just bit my tongue. It's no big deal. Then the nostalgia of being with the family was overwhelming. And then finally the anger towards thinking that this man could have fractured this family and done this to so many, and I'm just one of them. There's many, many, many stories. In the process, I discovered my family's history as founders of Cuba. And I began to realize their role in the country. So I wanted to return with my sons. I now wanted to let them feel what that was like. I wanted them to see the heritage where their father came from. Each trip with my son was very revealing. Their perspective was very unique. I went back with my oldest son, Nathan, first. I described this trip in the chapter Full Circle. Nathan was a history buff, a voracious reader. He knew all about the techniques the Fidelistas had masterfully executed to wage this revolution that had destroyed my family's way of life. He explained how guerrillas rallied on the friendly population to provide supplies and intelligence. Fidel, his brother Raul, and Che Guevara have been able to rally the campesinos for this support. Guerrillas also prefer to operate in regions providing plenty of cover and concealment, especially heavily forest and remote mountains areas like the Sierra Maestra. Once in power, the Fidelistas built a solid base of grassroots support. They engaged the poor campesinos in the countryside, as well as the oppressed urban working class, by giving them a sense of citizenship. Castro's new regime quickly organized a network of neighborhood committees across the island, which were basically cells of civilian informants swept up in the revolutionary zeal, each keeping a watchful eye on their neighbors. With the help of these vigilant snitches, any opposition was quickly and ruthlessly rooted out. I found it interesting that Nathan knew the strategic details of how the revolution has succeeded, a revolution that I wanted to forget or perhaps pretend had never happened at all. It was a trip of a lifetime. I then returned with my youngest son, Justin. In the chapter Vamos, Let's Go, Justin, as always, had his own unique ideas. One day, he says to me as we're traveling in Cuba, "This communist crap just does not work." Justin exclaimed in frustration, gesturing towards the clumping streets and buildings. I explained that communism was good in theory since it advocated helping the poor and sharing resources with those in need. A commendable humanitarian concept, but people were far too complex with different values, priorities, skill, work ethics to voluntarily embrace such utopian ideals. With limited incentives and no opportunities to pursue your own business ideas, the lowest common denominator prevailed, and a mediocre standard of living was the result. Communism eliminated poverty, but it generalized misery, and has never worked successfully anywhere in the world. In every case, a dominant dictator and his chosen crony impose this equality. And acquaintances of mine once defined communism as socialism enforced by terrorism. However, I admit it, capitalism has its own problems. Nothing was ever simple when people were involved. I can tell you that going back to Cuba resurrected my passion for my homeland, my love for its people, and the pride of discovering my family's role in Cuba's history, and the joy of sharing all this with my wife and sons. I hope that hearing my story, and if you read it, you might realize that all of us have to come to terms with ourselves and our journey. And that is why when I hear the national anthem, and that is why when I sing God Bless America or say the Pledge of Allegiance, I feel 10 feet tall, because we are very blessed to be in America. We are very blessed to be Americans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Naira. I'm sure if you're like me, when you hear these stories, you feel doubly blessed. Your story is an inspiration to all of us. I hope you'll take this story and count your blessings this evening. He was pretty modest tonight. I did read some of the rest of his story. He's been very successful in his businesses, but I think he's come full circle. Thanks again for your comments this evening. Before we get to the presentation of the Citizen of the Year tonight, I know we're all looking forward to that. I want to recognize the staff of the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. And I know you're here, don't be bashful. I want you to stand when I read your name. Please stand, and please hold your applause until the end. I don't know where everybody's at, so Nancy O'Neill, Suzanne Tullis, Tammy Walton, April Martini, and Laura Merrill. Thanks for all the work you do throughout the year. You know, the Chamber could not do all the work we do throughout the year without our members, our volunteers. And tonight, before the Citizen of the Year presentation, it's my pleasure to present 2 awards related to our members, our volunteers. First would be the New Member Referral Partner of the Year. This award is presented to a Chamber member who has referred several new members to the Chamber in 2011. And the recipient of this award in the 2011 New Member Referral Partner of the Year is somebody most of you know, Marilyn Colmer. Marilyn, please come forward. Obviously, it's true we couldn't have been the leading voice of business for over 100 years in this community without our members, without our volunteers, without many of you. And the chamber member that best exemplifies this volunteerism is recognized each year at our annual meeting as the ambassador of the year, somebody that's out representing the chamber in the business community, another business person. Please join me in welcoming our 2011 Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce Ambassador of the Year, April Adams from First Financial Bank. April, please come forward. I know both Marilyn and April accept this award representing many of you, but thanks for all the great work you did this year. And as we move to the Citizen of the Year presentation, I want to thank each one of you tonight for supporting the chamber, for being here tonight, and I want to give the hotel a special hand for the job they did tonight. Let's give them a hand. We do have some past Citizens of the Year in attendance tonight. I'd like to recognize them. If you're in the audience, please stand and hold your applause to the end. You know, I try that all the time, but it doesn't work. Jackie Parrish. See, I told you. Pat Carruthers, I think he's standing over here. Bill Wilkes. Are you still here, Bill? Yep. And Bob Weigel. Please, everybody stand. Let's give them a hand. And we have one Lifetime Achievement Award recipient in our midst tonight, Dave Blue. Please stand and give Dave a hand. So the excitement builds. And it's my pleasure to introduce Rich Gillette, the editor of the Hamilton Journal-News, who will come to the podium for the presentation of the Citizen of the Year. Rich?
Thank you, Kenny. On behalf of the Journal-News, it's an honor tonight to present the 2011 Hamilton Citizen of the Year Award. Don Ryan was a unanimous choice for this award. Don's commitment to the city through his services as the mayor and as a businessman here in Hamilton made him an obvious choice. His investment in downtown has paid dividends and will give others something to build on for the future. As you will see in this short video that we've put together, much of Don's life has been centered around making Hamilton a better place to live and a better place to do business.
Don's up for this award because of all the blood, sweat, and tears that he's put into Hamilton. Not only as mayor, but as a business owner and a lifelong resident. He's had a huge impact on the city, and it's really overdue. So I'm so glad that he's being honored. He certainly deserves it.
When you're on council with someone, you get a chance to know them pretty well, get to know about their family. You just see a lot of that individual, at least twice a month, but also a lot of committee meetings. And Don Ryan was everywhere.
When Don was on city council the first time, it was a struggle. Things were not going as he thought they should. And finally one night he said, "I'm sick of this blank and I'm not going to take it anymore." And he got up and walked out. And people were shocked. And I mean, it made it in the paper and everyone was just couldn't believe he had done it. But he was frustrated. He wasn't kidding around. He was frustrated, and a lot of people, if they did that, they would have just given up. They would have quit. They would have said, "The heck with this." But he didn't. What he realized was, I have to become mayor because it's not working now.
Don's a small business owner. He owns several small businesses. But in his role as mayor, he saw it as important that the downtown be redeveloped, revitalized, as important to the overall business strategy for the city. We talked a lot about that, but he not only talked about it, he did it himself.
He took a dilapidated building and turned it into a beautiful building, a beautiful facility for community use. That sparks economic development by bringing people downtown, by allowing people to gather downtown, allowing people to see that it really can be done with one man's determination and his family and friends behind him. Anything can be done.
I think Don's willingness to open Ryan's Tavern had a major impact on other businesses coming to and staying in the community. So I don't think you can understate what he's done for this community.
So he treated the city almost as if it was his own business. We got to go do ribbon cuttings for his businesses, and I didn't see much difference. He was just as excited about somebody else's business opening as he was his own, and that says a lot about Don Ryan.
I think a great vision, I guess, I have of Don Ryan is on St. Patrick's Day to see him at Ryan's Tavern. I think that's kind of the ultimate for Don, to have opened his traditional Irish pub in downtown Hamilton, and then, you know, come St. Patrick's Day, the place is packed, I mean, literally overflowing, everybody having a good time, and, you know, to just look at Don enjoying that, really encouraging people to be there and encouraging a lot of activity in the community. I think that's a kind of a perfect picture I have of Don.
I believe that restaurant is kind of like a pioneer. That restaurant's like a pioneer building, so to speak, a pioneer location, which now will lead to other developments. I believe the Mercantile development, if it wasn't for Don's restaurant, it may not be as far along as it is now, because obviously if you have people living downtown, they have to have a place to go to downtown before 5 as well as after 5 o'clock.
He never just tells you what to do. He asks you to do things and tells you why that it's important that you do them, and he asks your opinion, and so I felt like it was a real partnership with him, that he wasn't just I'm the mayor and this is the way we're going to do it, but he still was this guiding light that we followed.
Don is just such an enthusiastic and optimistic person. He really believes in his hometown. He believes in the city of Hamilton. And he believes that if people come together and work hard, that this is going to be a better place to live. So the two of us bonded immediately. And we began working closely, looking for ways to improve the city using Miami Hamilton. Ultimately, we arrived at this idea of Miami Hamilton downtown, a location that is both university and community coming together.
I think the greatest legacy that Don could leave would be a successful downtown, a vibrant community of people living, working, and enjoying themselves in downtown. And I think if you step back and look at one of the key factors to getting that started, one of the key engines to driving that was Don Ryan, and specifically Ryan's Tavern.
Don's legacy is described by the bumper sticker on the back of his car, "I believe in Hamilton." He absolutely believes in Hamilton, and that is his legacy.
I think somebody that not only talked about how to make Hamilton better, but he put himself out there and put his blood, sweat, and tears into this community to help make this community better.
I remember when he spoke at the dedication of the conservatory at Miami Hamilton, he said it would be interesting to come back in 100 years and see what has happened from the seeds that are planted today. And I think the same can be said about him.
Again, it's a great honor on behalf of the Journal News and the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce to present the 2011 Hamilton Citizen of the Year to Don Ryan.
Wow. I have a few few remarks. I know it's been a long night for everyone. This award is just, I can't tell you how special this award is to me, and I'll treasure it for the rest of my life. I can tell you that. My thanks also to the Chamber and the Journal News, the Citizen of the Year Committee for selecting me, and a special thanks to Mary Reimer for nominating me. Thank you, Mary. However, in accepting this award, many thanks must be given. For me, it started when I became mayor in 2002, not when I walked out of council, as Nancy so aptly put it. But that was a fun night, though. I was very fortunate when I became mayor to meet some very, very good friends. And they're a unique group of people, and I consider them my best friends today. They're people, they were visionaries. They were passionate about this city, and they believed in its future, as did I. To us, the vision was not just about an Irish tavern in downtown Hamilton. It was about the greater vision of what downtown could be. The tavern was to be a catalyst to begin to bring people back to our downtown, to have them see the possibilities for future investment in our city, to bring more businesses downtown, as well as people living in our downtown. And to those who believe in the vision, I want you to know that it is working. Over 50% of our customers now coming to the tavern are from outside the city of Hamilton, Ohio. They're making Hamilton their destination on a Friday or Saturday night. I tell you, it's so neat when I'm over there to see all these cars parked on High Street and around the courthouse, and to see people walking on the streets. It's just a really, really good feeling. And we're getting people now from Middletown, Trenton, Oxford, Ross, Fairfield, all the townships. They're coming from northern Cincinnati and southeastern Indiana. It's just really, really neat to hear people talk about our downtown and how beautiful it is, especially at Christmas. My gosh, it just lights up. And it's just so neat to hear people talk about, well, we didn't know you had a downtown like this. Hell, most of them didn't even know we had a downtown. Anyway, a lot of people have helped bring this vision together. And I want to give them my personal thanks. And you've seen some of them on the video. Nancy Wiley, just a great friend. John Gaduli, Kenny Craig, Craig Wilkes, Daniel Hall, Mike and Cindy Dingledine, Dave Ballou, good friend, Rob Weil, Jim Fitton, and bless his heart, he's not with us any longer, but Denny Walsh was just a great supporter and helped me a lot during some difficult times. And I want to thank them, and also Pat Crothers. Pat helped also. And I want to thank them for their support, for their time, and for the resources that they give to bring this vision to reality. You know, there are many others who have supported us and continue to support us today in so many different ways. And there are also those out there who choose to remain anonymous. But I want to thank them for the time that they spent with me, whether it was giving me their ear to listen to what I had to say and then offer encouragement, or whether they were providing their resources to, again, bring this vision into a reality. I also have several family members here this evening. I'd like to introduce them. We have 6 sons, and they're all here. And if you guys would just stand real quick when I call your name, we'll go oldest to youngest, and then we'll do a countdown from 1,000. I don't know, I did that a lot as mayor, I don't know what that means, but Kevin drove up from Raleigh, North Carolina. Chris and his wife Trish are here. They live in Hamilton, work for us. Alex Ryan works for us. Sean Ryan he lives in Columbus. He drove down. We just want him to work for us. Michael Ryan with Brown Dawson Funeral Home. And Zachary Ryan works for us. Love you guys. My brother Tim's here. He wants to be one of the brothers, their brothers, but he's actually mine. And I have two sisters here, Cheryl Stuckenberg and Sandy Brown. I have several sister-in-laws here, known affectionately as the Gans girls. We have Kiki Gans from Dayton, Molly Gans from Middletown, Alice Gans Brown, who flew up from Atlanta, Georgia, and Mary Beth Gans Eaton, who came from New Orleans. There are also two people here from the tavern, and I want to introduce them. Most of you know them. Tully Milders, who's our general manager, and his wife, Terry. And Joe Fontaine, the banquet manager, and his wife, Donna. Thank all you guys for being here this evening. Lastly, and I saved the best for last, this whole project would not even have begun without the love, the help, the support, and the sacrifice of my lovely wife, Vicki. Guys, you know when you come home and you've got this great idea and you tell your wife, and then they do this kind of. And you know they're thinking, what the hell is he thinking? Well, I got that look that night about 6 years ago, and I said, how about an Irish tavern in downtown Hamilton? But Vicki's born and raised in Hamilton, and she thought about it, and then she got on board with it, and it's a good thing because she worked closely with Mike and Cindy Dingeldine at Steed Hamilton Paul and helped with every facet of the building process and the decorating process. And if you've not seen the 1921 room, we don't charge to go there. It's a beautiful room, and I think for those of you who haven't seen it, please stop by sometime and take a look at that room. It's quite beautiful. But Vicki shares the same vision as I do about the city and cares deeply about her hometown. And so I just appreciate everything you've done, Vicki, and thank you very much. Love you. In closing, I know most of you know, and you've heard, I love this city. I always have, and I always will. I love its history. I love its buildings. I love its neighborhoods. And of course, I love its people. The past 20 years, of course, have been tough on this city, but you know we're still here. In fact, that's what I tell people about the tavern. We're still here. You know, it's been a tough 3 years for a lot of people in this city. And so I ask tonight that you continue to actively support the city leaders, the chamber, and the Vision Commission in their goals and in their objectives. And I ask that you continue to believe in this city. And lastly, I ask that you continue to dare to believe in this city's future. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Don, on a very well-received honor, or well-deserved honor. I have a couple of thank yous before we close tonight. Again, a thank you to our annual meeting event sponsor, Community First Solutions, our presenting sponsor, Miller Coors, our sponsors, Butler Tech, First Financial Bank, Fort Hamilton Hospital, Mercy Health Fairfield Hospital, U.S. Bank, our supporting sponsor, DeCosmo and Company, and also a special thanks to the Courtyard by Marriott, the Hamilton Journal-News, Noonan's, and TV Hamilton. And with that, that concludes our program for this evening. I wish you all well, and thank you for coming. Good night.